Good morning and welcome back to our microprocessor and IoT class. This is our second class. Last week we discussed about the microprocessor, and we discussed about how the microprocessor has inside the microprocessor it has control unit, we have a register, also we have the arithmetic logic unit for calculating something. And also we discussed about there are several types of register. We have data register, also we have address register, and also we have the instruction register. Okay. And we also discussed about how the microprocessor works. First, you need to fetch the instruction from the memory and put it into the instruction register, and then decode the instruction to understand what is supposed to be done, and then followed by execute the instruction itself. And then fetch again, decode, execute, fetch again, decode, execute, etc. until the end of time. Now, today we're going to discuss about how the microprocessor interact with memory. Last we discussed about several types of computer system architecture. We have the most sophisticated system, which is we have the input. In this case, we have the push button. Every time we push or press the button in here, the status of the button, which is pressed or not, will be read by the microprocessor. And then that status of that button will be used to either turn on or turn off the speaker as the output. And in some cases, we can also store the status of the button in the memory. So we can store the status in the memory, so we can maybe analyze the data. Several times in a day, do we press the button, or how many minutes do we press the button for each day, etc. And then every time we start the input, so the start status of the button, we call it writing the data. And then sometimes we can also retrieve the data to the microprocessor for further calculation. In this case, we call it reading from the memory. So the interaction between microprocessor and memory is two-way. The microprocessor can either write into the memory, or it can also read from the memory to the microprocessor. Okay, so it's two-way, both way. Now, for the microprocessor can interact with the microprocessor, so with the memory, it needs several bus. Remember, we have three types of bus. First one is the data bus. Bus is actually just it's just like a copper wire in the motherboard, something like this. This is the bus, just a copper wire, but we call it bus. And usually we call bus because there are several copper wire for the same function. For example, the bus that transmit the data. So we have data bus, the bus who transmit the data, and address bus is the bus who transmit the address, and control bus is the bus who transmit the control system. For example, I want to read from the memory. That means control bus. Okay. So bus is actually a copper wire that connect the input to the microprocessor to the output, and also the microprocessor to the memory. So this is the bus. As you can see in here, data bus from input is connected to the microprocessor, and for the output, the data bus flows from the microprocessor to the output. While the memory, the data bus is two-way, because the microprocessor can write into the memory, and also it can read from the memory. Okay. Now, however, for address bus, it can only start from the microprocessor. For example, the microprocessor will send address bus to the input, will send the address bus to the output, will send the address bus to the output, to the memory, sorry. So, data bus can be two-way, but address bus can only one way. I mean, going out of from the memory. Going out of from the memory. Sorry. Now, for the control bus itself, it can also be two-way. It can be from the microprocessor to the input or the input to the microprocessor. This one. Okay. However, in data bus, because in this case, we explained that data bus and control bus is two-way communication, and address bus is only one-way communication. However, in data bus, let's say this is data bus D0, D1, D2, D3, D4, etc. We can share the same wire for transmitting both way, either to the microprocessor or to the memory. But in control bus, although we explained that control bus is two-way, but it's actually one way. Why? Because there will be one control line for one dedicated function. For example, I want to read something, then it will be only one way, only one wire used. And then I want to write, there's only one wire used. Okay, so although in this picture control bus is drawn as a two-way communication, but it's actually only one-way communication because one line is dedicated for one functionality, either read or write or even sending a status. Okay? So that's why data bus is the only bus that is the actual two-way communication, because the wire can be used both way. At this, the same wire can be used both way. But in control bus, one wire, only one way. Now, we already discussed about what is the 8088 microprocessor. Now, the question is, which pin used by 8088 microprocessor to talk to the memory? Remember, whenever microprocessor want to talk to memory, it needs data bus, it needs address bus, and also it needs control bus. So, which pin used by 8088 microprocessor to talk to the memory? First one is data bus. This is the data bus. And then address bus. Address bus is this one. This is address bus. Now the control bus. The control bus, including the read, write, and several other pins, but we're not going to use that in this course. So we have address bus, we have a data bus, and also we have the control bus. And in this case, we only need read and write. Okay. Now, we'll discuss about this inside the microprocessor, ALU register, control unit, bus, but now we're going to discuss more about the register. Because previously we only treat the register as a data register, although actually they can store instruction using instruction register. This is the instruction register. And it can also store data, address, and status, or we call it flag. Now, data and address can be used for the microprocessor to interact with the memory. For example, I want to calculate data. We understand that the data is very big. It cannot be stored in the register itself. So we can only store the data inside the memory, outside the microprocessor. So we have, this is the microprocessor, and then we can also have the memory. So we can store the data, lots of data inside the memory, and then retrieve one by one the data into the microprocessor to be calculated or processed further. For example, I want to calculate the average value of the data from this memory to this memory. So I'm going to retrieve one by one, calculate the sum, and then divided it by the number of the data. So we can get the average. Okay. Now, we will discuss about how it works. So we're going to skip this one. Now, this is the flexibility of the microprocessor. First is microprocessor is supposed to be able to locate the location of the instruction and also the data, because we're going to store not just the data into the memory, but also the instruction, the program that we're going to use to process the data. For example, I want to calculate an average value of this several value. The value itself is stored in the memory, and the program to calculate all of the data is also stored in the memory. So we need to retrieve the instruction and also the data, just like our example in here. First, control unit will retrieve the instruction from the memory, and then based on the retrieve data from the memory is actually an instruction. So we can store the instruction into the instruction register and decode the instruction and then execute the instruction. Yeah. Now, why do we need memory? To store data and instruction, of course. So we need the memory to store data and also the instruction. Now, what is memory hierarchy? It's a hierarchy of memory types. For example, we have several types of memory. The fastest one, the bigger one, or the biggest one, and the cheaper one. We need to combine all of those to create a memory that is fast enough, but affordable to the user. So that's why we need the hierarchy of memory. This is an example of memory hierarchy is this one. The fastest memory in the microprocessor system is the register itself, because it's the same speed with the microprocessor. And then followed by cache. Memory cache is stored or implemented using static RAM. Very fast, but small capacity, but very expensive to be implemented. So that's why we need another type of memory, which is the main memory, dynamic RAM. Dynamic RAM much bigger, but slower than the cache, but cheaper compared to the cache. And then the main memory, if the memory is not enough, then we can also add the hard drive or the SSD. This is the secondary memory, much bigger capacity, but slower speed, but it's the most affordable price. Okay, so how it actually works? First, the microprocessor whenever a microprocessor wants to calculate a data, first it will check the register. Do we have the data in the register? No, we don't have the data. So we need to check the cache. Is the data inside the cache? No. That data that you asked is not in the cache. Okay, so then we need to retrieve from the memory. So then, because the data is not in the register, and it also is not in the cache, and it's also not in the cache, so we can retrieve the data from the main memory. Okay, now let's check out my laptop, for example. I think this one. No. Okay, I'm still confused about using this setting here. Just use Sibara. This is. So it said that my laptop has the processor of AMD Ryzen 5, and then it has 32 GB of dynamic RAM, and then what else? It's only this information. Okay. Oh, Task Manager. Let's see, where is the microprocessor? See the computer. Yeah. Oh, still not showing the memory cache. Okay, but we just browse what file. AMD Ryzen 5. Wait, what is my 2500 U? Okay, and then specs. Now, okay, as you can see in here, my microprocessor, which is Ryzen 5, it has 4 cores and 8 threads, and then this one. The size of the cache is 4 megabyte. Okay, this one. So we have 3 level of cache. Level 1 cache is 128 kilobyte per core. And then the layer 2 cache is 512 kilo. And layer 3 cache is 4 megabyte, but it's share. So this is the cache of my microprocessor. It is built inside the microprocessor itself. So inside the microprocessor, we have that we call register and also the cache. So this is inside the microprocessor. While the main memory is outside the microprocessor. And as you can see from the Ryzen, we have 3 level of cache, level 1, level 2, and level 3. So every time the microprocessor want to calculate the data, first it check the register itself. No, we don't have that data that you want. Please ask the cache. Okay, so then I'm going to check the cache. Level 1 cache. Do you have the data? No. Layer 2 cache. Do you have the data? No. Layer 3? Okay, I have it. Okay, so then the data inside the layer 3 cache will be moved toward the register. Remember, microprocessor can only work on the data if the data is inside the register. Even though the cache is inside the microprocessor cannot calculate directly from the cache. It can only be used to store temporary data. Okay. Now, whenever layer 1, layer 2, layer 3 cache doesn't have the data, then we can go down to the main memory. If the main memory doesn't have the data itself, then we can go to the bottom, to the last resort, which is the hard drive. Okay, this is how the hierarchy memory works. The purpose is we want to balance between capacity, speed, and also the price. We want to make it fast enough, but also affordable to the user. So everyone can buy a decent computer. Not the very fast computer, not the fastest computer on earth, but a decent computer. Okay. So this is the memory. Now, there are several types of memory, which is the internal, external, which is inside the microprocessor register, cache, hard drive, which is the outside of the memory. And also we can also have the ROM type, and then also the EEPROM, RAM, etc. And also based on the media, we can use the electric charge, for example, the flash disk like this, and also the optic, the CD-ROM, I believe, and also the magnetic, like for the old hard drive. Now, as we already mentioned earlier, there are two types of interaction between microprocessor memory. The first one is read operation, is to retrieve data from the memory, and write operation is to store information into the memory. Okay. Now, in read operation, first microprocessor prepares and outputs the address of the data. So microprocessor need to explain to the memory, I want your data at this location. So then microprocessor will send the address of the data, the address of the location of the data inside the RAM. And then microprocessor will send a read signal to the memory. Now I want to read from you. The memory will understand, okay, someone want to read myself. But at which location, which data do you want to read? Then I need to read the address. Oh, you want to read at this location. Then the memory will give the data into the data bus. So we have first address bus. Second is the read signal. Third one is the data retrieved from the memory to the microprocessor. So we have address bus in here. We also have the control bus in here, and also we have the data bus in here. So that's the sequence when the microprocessor want to read from the memory. Address, read, and then data. In write operation, just like in the read process, first the microprocessor need to explain where is the location that I want to write, and then also the data itself. Then the last one is write. Please put this data into this location. That's the meaning of write signal. This is the control signal. This is the data bus. This is the address bus. So first is address bus and also data bus. Then write signal. So the memory will understand that, oh, you want me to write or store this data at this location. Okay. So then memory will store that data at a specific location. Okay. Now, do we have that? Okay. Yes. Now, this is the example of ROM and also RAM. We have 2716 as the ROM, read-only memory, and 4016 as the RAM. So you can see in here, we have D0 to D2, and then we also have D3 to D7. So the data bus is from D0 to D7, or we have 8 lines. So at the same time, we can send 8 bits of data, or we can call it 1 byte, because 8 bits is 1 byte. Because the data bus is from D0 to D7. D0, D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, D6, and D7. So we have 8 lines for data. We call it data bus. Okay. Now, how about the address bus? We have A0 in here up to A7, and then we also have A8, A9, and A10. So the address bus start from A0 to A10. Okay, so we have 11 lines of address bus. Now, the same thing like RAM 4016. It has also D0 to D7. D0 to D7. And also we have the A0 to A10. Same thing. The difference is in ROM, there is no write control signal. But in RAM, we have something that we call write enable. This is to write something into the memory, and also output enable. This is to read something from the memory. So in RAM, we have write and also read. But in ROM, we don't have write and read because just like its name, ROM, read only memory. So we can only read from the memory. Because we cannot distinguish between read and write, then we don't have to provide either write or read. So there is no write or read control line into the ROM. Okay, that's the difference between ROM and RAM. Now, what is inside the memory itself? Well, we can have the analogy like the Microsoft Excel. In Microsoft Excel, we have something like okay. So in Microsoft Excel, we have something like this. We have cell. Okay, let's try to. Now, let's think about this as the memory inside of the memory. Okay, so this is inside the memory. We can store, like for example, AD, and then we can also store DF or A0 or 14 or E4, etc. This is the data stored inside the memory. But how about if I want to read this data, AD? Okay, you need to specify the location. So what is the location? It's F and 7. Oh, F7. So you want to retrieve this data. Okay. So that's why the address bus will send F and 7, and then the memory will return AD. So it works the same thing like in the memory. To retrieve the data, first we need to identify the address first. Okay, that's my. Oh. I want to retrieve this data. Okay, you need to specify the address. Okay, the address is, the column is 00101 and the row is 00001. Okay, I'm going to read that. Okay, so this is the data that you want to retrieve. Then this data will be sent to the database. Okay, and this, how about this cell? To retrieve data from this cell, you need to send 00001 and 00001. How about if I want to retrieve this data? Okay, you need to send the address of 00011 and also 00011. Okay. So we need the column information and also the row information. Now, let's explore more about the 8088. This is the read-only memory, but only 4 bytes. What is inside this read-only memory 4 bytes? This is the inside the ROM. We have this data. This is the data bus. And then we also have the A0, A1, and also the chip select. We're going to discuss about chip select after this. Now, let's clear first. If I send A0, 0, A1, 0, then this will become 1, 1, and also this one is, let's say this one is 0. 0 plus 1 plus 1, because this one is OR gate, is 1. 1 will not turn on this 3-state buffer because the 3-state buffer active only when it is 0. But because we send 1 in here, then this row of 3-state buffer will not active. Okay, let's move on. 0, so this one is 0. And then this one will become 1. This one will become 0. 0 plus 1 plus 0 is still 1. So this row of 3-state buffer is not active also. How about this one? This one will become 1, 0, 0. Still 1. So this row of 3-state buffer is not active. Now, how about the last one? 0, 0, 0. 0 plus 0 plus 0, because this one is OR gate, will become 0. And this 0 will activate or will open the 3-state buffer. So everything that's stored inside the flip-flop, this one, will be connected to the data bus. So whatever inside the flip-flop, the D flip-flop, now will be accessible through the data bus. Okay, now, how about another combination, just to make sure? Chip select is 0, and then let's say this one is 0, and this one is 1. Now, the first OR gate, this will become 1, this will become 0, and this will become 0. 1 plus 0 plus 0, 1, not active. 0, 0, 0. 0 plus 0, this one is now active. So everything stored inside the C column of the D flip-flop will be sent directly to DT bus. And for that combination, this one will become 1, 1, 0, not active, 0, 1, 0, not active. So in one combination, only one column of D flip-flop will be active. So actually, the address bus will select which column do we want to access. For example, 0, 0. Okay, 0, 0. That means you want to read column A. 1, 0. Okay, 1, 0. You mean you want to access column C. 0, 1. Okay, you want to access column C. 1, 1. Okay, you want to access column B. So, in one combination of address bus, only one memory, only one set of memory can be selected. Okay, I hope that will give you an insight of how the memory works. Now, let's move on. This is how we connect microprocessor with the memory. This is 8080 with the RAM 2114. We just remove all the line that will not going to be used in this animation. So we just need the address bus, data bus, and also the control bus. Now, data bus. The 8080 has 8 bits of data from D0 to D7. However, the 2114 RAM only has 4 data bus. So we can just connect directly like this. Now, how about control bus? 8080 has the write signal, which is active low, and the RAM itself also has write enable, which is also active low. Active low means to make it active, we're going to give 0 volt or ground. So active when low voltage. Because both are low, active low, then we can just directly connect the write signal from the microprocessor to the write enable to the memory. Now, how about the address bus? So we have A0 to A15 for the address bus from the microprocessor, but in RAM only from A0 to A9. So we're just going to connect one by one. A0 to A0, A1 to A1, A2 to A2, etc. until A9 to A9. Okay. Now, let's try the first combination. The address bus sent by the microprocessor, remember, the address bus only come out of the microprocessor. So it's an outgoing bus. So let's take for the first example, all the address line is 0. That means I want to access the first column or the first data inside the RAM. How about this combination? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. So A0 now become 1. That means I want to access not the first data, but the second data. How about this one? Oh, you want to access the third data. How about this one? Oh, you want to access the fourth data. How about this one? Oh, you want to access the last data inside the RAM. So if everything is 0, then it means I want to access the first data of the RAM. But if everything is 1, then it want to access the last data from the RAM, from the memory. Okay. So we can see that we can explain the memory map of we can explain the content of the RAM using something that we call memory map. So the memory map start with the address of 0, 0, 0 because everything is 0. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0, 0. Because everything is 0, then the first address of the memory is 0, 0, 0 in hexadecimal. That's why it's called hex. And then the last address of the memory is 3FF. Because this is 3, and then this is, oops, sorry. This is 3, and this is F, and this is F. So 3FF. When everything becomes 1, then the address is 3FF. Okay. Let's explain it again. We have A0, A1, A2, A3, and then A4, A5, A6, A7, A8, and A9. When everything is 0, 1, 2, A0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this one is 0, 0, 0 in hexa. And then the last address is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And this one is F. This one is F. This one is 3. So the address is 3FF. That's the last address of the memory. Okay. Okay, so far any question? If not, then we can try a demo by using the VirtualBox. Now, I have a virtual machine in here, and it used the very old operating system called the Microsoft DOS. It's actually around, I believe it's around 42 years ago. It's on 1980. We just start the virtual machine. In the old days, we don't have the GUI, we don't have the graphical user interface. We only have command line. So this is what it looks like in the old days. Everything is text. Now, what are we going to do about this virtual machine? We want to learn about how to access a memory by using a small program from the Microsoft DOS, which called debug. You can also try to, if you want to learn about debug, you can just visit my blog. It's in the survival guide. And then we have something like in here, debug, survival guide debug. That's a small note from me. This is a lecture note, debug.com survival guide, how to use. Okay. Now, back to our virtual machine. Now, first, I want to show that about the hierarchy memory. Okay, let's move to the TP. This is Turbo Pascal. Here, okay, we have, okay, so we have a program called diskEdit.exe. Actually, every time you run a program, your operating system will read the program and put it into the memory, because your program is located inside the what you call hard drive or flash disk. So your operating system will read the program and put it into the main memory, the dynamic RAM. Similar like when I'm using debug, then let's take for example this edit.exe. When I press enter, debug will read the content of this edit.exe and put it into the memory. Like this. So what is inside this edit.exe? Let's try it out. We can use U as symbol, or you can use R first to check the register. This is the register for the 8080. We have AX register. We also have the BX register, base register, and GX and DX. This is the data register. Then we also have several address register, stack pointer, base pointer. Look at this one. It's a source index, destination index, and data segment, extra segment, source segment, and code segment, and instruction pointer. This is the instruction pointer that store the next instruction that need to be retrieved, to be fetched from the memory. Okay. We're not going to discuss about the how to fetch instruction, because that's for the next two class. One thing that I need to show you that you can use U as an ensemble. Now, this is the actual content of the diskEdit.exe program. The first instruction is to call something, and then call something, and then push, move, sub, extra. This is what is inside the diskEdit.exe. So now let's quit again. Then try to run the debug, but without the file, just debug. Okay. Now, if I want to read the content of the memory, we can use D as dump. This is the content of the memory. First is 0F, and then second is 00, and then B9, 8A, FF, F3, etc. And then let's try to create a small program. Move AX from the memory. I want to retrieve this part of the memory. The address is 0, 1, 0, 0. Okay, so 0, 1, 0, 0. Okay, first, we need to check the content of the register. IX is 0. And then try to run the program by using trace. Now, okay, sorry, wait. Okay. Okay. I forgot something. Let's try it over. Debug, and then D, and then I forgot to do the little engine. And then let's try to create a small program. I want to retrieve the data, this data, to register AX. But instead of using 0, 1, 0, 0, I need to switch to become 0, 0, 0, 1. Why? That's because Intel has, we call it little endian. Sorry, it's big endian. Because it's big endian, then we need to switch this 0, 1, 0, 0 to become 0, 0, 0, 1. Okay. Now let's try to trace first. Okay. Trace. Okay. DS is 1165, this one. And then the offset is 0, 0, 0, 1. Okay. D. Okay. I got confused. Okay. Let's start over again. Debug. And then dump. I want to retrieve this data. Then I'm going to move AX using the same thing, 0, 1, 0, 0. Very sorry about this. And then check the register, still 0. And then trace. Then it will become 0, 0, A, 1. How come it become 0, 0, A, 1? Let's read this out. Because I check this, the data segment is 1165. This is the data segment. And then the offset is 0, 1, 0, 0, which is in this case this one. Okay, now D1165 0, 1, 0, 0. Okay. So that means it will retrieve this data 0, 0, A, 1. This one. Okay. Okay. Let's try it again. Debug. And then dump. And now move AX, 0, 1, 0, 0. this one. Then it will retrieve 00A1. So if I press this one, so AX will become 00A1. Then you can use this data for further processing, for example, addition, subtraction, etc. Okay. Okay, this is for the retrieving data from the memory. Now, how about writing data from the memory into the memory? Let's quit first, and then the back, and then dump the data. Now, I want to retrieve this data, B200. So, I want to create the program, move AX 0110, 0110. Okay, and then I'm going to write this data 00B2, B200 to, let's say, here. So I'm going to move to the 0120 and AX. Okay. Now let's trace the program, run the program, trace AX to become 00B2, this one, 00B2. And then I'm going to store this data to here. So the 00DB will be replaced by B200. This. Okay, now let's check the content of the memory by using D or dump. Here. Now the content of memory in 0120 will become B200. The same thing like B200. So I read the data from memory and then store it again into the memory. This is how the program works. So this is the program, move, and this is the content of the memory. Okay. Now, I need to explain one more thing because I'm skipping something in here. What is that? There's it. Okay, this one. In Intel architecture, we use something that we call von Neumann architecture. That means the memory will store data and also program. So we're going to use the same place of memory to store data and also to store program. This is what happened when we have trouble previously. When I put the program move AX0110, it will be stored here, A110. And when I try to create the next program, move 0120 AX, it will be written into the same memory, 01A3. Although in the same memory, we use it to store data also, B200. So the same memory of this memory, we use it to store program and also data. This is what we call Neumann architecture. So the same memory will be used to store data and also the program. We just need to distinguish, okay, this part is the program and this part is the data. That's why in Intel architecture, we have something that we call DS, which stands for data segment. And also we have CS, stand for code segment. Segment is a location in the memory that can be dedicated for data or the code. So even though the same memory can be used for data and also the code, we split it by using data segment and also code segment. So although we have the same memory, we can split it logically in the program. This is the place for the program. This is the place for the data. But it's still on the same memory hardware. Now, we also have something that we call Harvard architecture. In Harvard architecture, we're going to distinguish the memory itself, the hardware of memory itself. This is the memory to store the program, and this is the memory to store the data. This is what we call Harvard architecture. Different memory to store data and to store program. Why do we need to split this memory? That's because data and instruction have a specific behavior. For example, something that we call locality. If this is the data, if right now the microprocessor access this data, then it will be most probably the next data will be accessed is around this data. Maybe this one, or maybe this one. This is what we call locality of data. So we can just take this chunk of memory and put it into the cache memory. However, in instruction, if right now microprocessor access this instruction, then it will be most probably it will retrieve the next instruction here. So it has a different type of locality. In data, oh, the microprocessor access this cell of memory, this current memory. So I need to retrieve all of this block of memory into the cache because it will be most likely that the microprocessor will access the next data that will be accessed is inside this block of memory. So it will be faster if you just retrieve this block of memory and put it into the cache memory. But in instruction, no. The locality is if right now I'm executing this instruction, then the next instruction will be into the next memory, from the next memory. So that's why in Harvard architecture, split the place for the instruction memory and the data itself. It's different type of device, different hardware. So what's the benefit of Harvard? Much faster than the von Neumann, but the drawback is more expensive because we need two device memory to store instruction and to store data. Okay. Now, because the Harvard architecture is very expensive, then we have something that we call modified Harvard architecture. In modified Harvard architecture, remember about the here. We're not going in modified architecture, we're not going to split the main memory. Okay, this is the device for data, and this is the device for the program. No, it's not something like that. That's Harvard architecture. In modified Harvard, the main memory will store data and also program. We can mix data and program into the same location, but the case itself, we're going to split. Okay, L1. I'm going to split you into, this is L1 for data, and this is one L1 for, this is L1 for data, and this one is level 1 for program. And for level 2 or level 2 case, this is the place for data, and this is the place for program. So we're going to split the data and the program in the cache memory. That's modified Harvard architecture. So when we talk about modified architecture, that's because after this, we're going to discuss about microcontroller, especially something that we call Atmega 328P. In Atmega 328P, they use something that we call modified Harvard. Okay, that's only a small explanation about modified Harvard architecture. It's just splitting between instruction or program and the data. Okay, any questions so far about this? Okay, if not, then I think that's it for today. And don't forget to do the question here. Let's see. I believe I'm going to open this one, creative answer with memory. So it's not open yet. Okay, let's try to check the quiz first. Okay, we have 7 questions. Now we're going to open it. So you can do the quiz today. On, sorry. And oh, don't forget that this quiz will, the score will be counted towards your final score. I need to, this one. Oops, what happened? Okay, quiz 2. So this is for your attendance and also for your score. Because okay, we have another copy. Because as we mentioned earlier, we have the score calculated from the 20% of daily quiz. So we have quiz number 2. Then the timing is March 2nd from right now until tonight. And then the duration is 10 minutes and only one attempt allowed. 10 minutes and another. Okay, I think that's all. Okay, I think that's it for today, and thank you for coming, and I'll see you next week. Next week, we're going to discuss how microprocessor interact with the I/O. And after that, now we're going to discuss about machine instruction, the program, by using this one. I'm also going to share this virtual machine through the, I believe we have the, okay, we don't have this one. So I'm going to share to the, perhaps the Google Drive. Okay, thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Thank you.